Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jimothy Show. So glad you're here. It is Saturday, March 22nd, 2025, and I am pumped to have you here on the Jimothy Show. It's episode 10, unless you're watching live on X right now, where I forgot to change the name of it, and it looks like it's episode 8. But let me tell you, definitively, it is episode 10 of the Jimothy Show. It's an incredible time to be here and to be alive and to be bringing it to you. Can't believe it. What's the Jimothy Show about? It's about social media, the headlines, video games, movies, and books that Jimothy, that's me, your host, at least for this week, cares about. And maybe you care about them too. So I'm anonymous on social media. I've worked in tech, consulting, retail, bartending, waiting tables, installing appliances, stocking shelves, and mowing lawns. I'm a family man, a gamer, a fan of technology, and a social commentator. And I can't believe you're here with me today. It's a really incredible feeling. So glad to have you here. It's a really incredible feeling for you to be on the other side of this microphone. Let's be honest. Where else can you have Jimothy live right in your pocket? Take me with you on the phone, take me with you on the plane. As long as you don't talk back, they won't throw you off a plane, I think. Thankfully, that's still illegal to be on meetings on planes, but you never know. They'll try and make it work. I've been on a plane recently. I flew through the Universal Studios Airport, also known as Orlando International, and I did not see the lady that did that thing with her dog. I wasn't there for that. But I did fly because we went to Universal Studios, took the family out, really had an incredible time up until the point that I caught like the sequel to The Flu. I don't know if you've ever been a fan of The Flu or its prequels, but the sequel, which is maybe, COVID, maybe it's something else. I don't know. But it almost made me forget about the trip. People were like, "Hey, Jimothy, welcome back to work. How's the trip, man?" It's like I don't even remember. Like it's gone. The, my children, the little Jimothys, didn't seem to get it. They seem to be able to stay away from it. Yeah, yeah, I know. Robert, thanks for pointing it out. Yeah, it says episode 8. This is what happens when you've had the flu so bad that you even look at your checklist before starting the show and forget to rename everything. It's definitely episode 10. That's what I'm going to call it anyway when this goes up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts later. But the post on X is going to say episode 8. It's too late. Y'all are already here. Like, I'm not going to restart the show just to change that. I believe everyone will work with me on this one. So it really knocked me out. Like, whatever, I don't know if I caught something while I was on a ride or while I was on a plane in Florida, but man, it knocked me out so much. And it took me a good week. I think I probably haven't like done like a full sweat fever in forever. And I must have feel like I was fever sweating for like 4 days straight and then laid low. Like I went back to work because I'm blessedly able to work remote most of the time. Lucky or not, I, there's some commentary out there that says that maybe you're not lucky if you get to work remote because you're more likely to be sedentary, you're more likely to be chained to the desk and have no excuse to even walk more than 10 feet to the bathroom or something like that. So I'm not sure if it's a curse or not. It is convenient, but it might be a curse. But yeah, I hobbled through a work week and it was like my boss let me know. He was like, "Hey, yeah, you look pretty pale." It's like, "I know. Would you want me to call out?" It's tough to call out when you work remote because you just log in. Just log in. So long as you can think and you don't have an active fever, I can do pretty well. Uh, so just go for it, right? But the trip was pretty good up until then. We went to Universal Studios. I hadn't been to Universal for more than like a half day in about 20 years. So when Mrs. Jimothy and I got married, we were gifted a trip to Universal Studios from my parents as a wedding gift, which we were broke. We didn't have anything, no money, both working low level jobs. And we were just like putting it together, just trying to get our life together. And they were like, "How would you like to go to Universal Studio?" Which was like a trip to the moon for us. We were like, "Yeah, it's amazing." And I remember the Hulk was a new ride. And if you've never been on the Hulk, it's like a real roller coaster and it shoots you out of this gamma radiation tube. You fly up through the air. You're going on at least three upside down, kind of loops, half loops. And they've got speakers built into the ride that give you like that Marvel Avengers music. And so it feels very epic. It feels like going through this journey of becoming the Hulk, and you shoot out of there, and you're the Hulk, and you're mad, you're rampaging. It's really great. And back in like the early 2000s, 20 years ago when we got married, I must have went on that thing like 30 times. It was great. So this time, 20 years later, to go back, they're still doing it. They're still shooting people with gamma radiation right out of the tube, just like right where I left it. Nothing changed at all. Looks amazing. So I went back, but I took my 10-year-old daughter with me. And it was her first roller coaster. 2 years ago, we did Disney. And it was fine. Like Disney is kind of tame for roller coasters. There's nothing too crazy. They do a really good job of scaring the hell out of your children if you take them onto the what is it? The Tower of Terror. Like that thing has enough panache, enough emotional like drama that it's scary, even though it doesn't really throw you around that much. Disney does that better than Universal. But Universal's like, "Hey, have you heard of a real roller coaster? That's what we're going to put you on." So I looked over on the Hulk, which I'm a pro at the Hulk. I've been on at least, 3 dozen times 20 years ago. Turns out I could still do it today. Still doing it. But my 10-year-old had never been on a ride that goes upside down. And I look over as we launch out of the gamma tube on the Hulk, and she is out. Like gone. And I almost panicked, but I've seen enough TikTok videos that show that people wake up after they pass out. They wake up after they pass out online on rides. And so I was like, "She'll be okay, right?" And I'm trying to tap her hand. I can barely kind of move my head, can't quite see her. I was like, "Hey, you okay over there? Like, are you going to make it?" And nothing. Like, she's not responding. I was like, my kid passed out on the Hulk. Totally toast. And about half, and I keep tapping her hand, saying her name, like, "Hey." And she finally kind of like comes to midway through the ride, realizes where she is, and then almost passes out again. So I was like, "Okay, well, that was the first ride of the day, first ride of the trip. And I guess we're not doing any more rides after this one." But to my surprise, she came off the ride and was like, "Dad, what happened up there?" So I explained it to her. She was like, "That was the best thing I've ever seen. I just didn't know that I didn't know what was going to happen." And I was like, "Man, I guess I didn't prep you for it." Slinky Dog at Disney for a 10-year-old does not prep them for the Hulk. I should tweet that out. For the record, Slinky Dog's not enough. So Disney was amazing in so many ways, but Universal Studios, man, real roller coasters. But after that, she became my little roller coaster buddy. She's like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Once she figured out she can kind of hold her head up and brace herself a little bit, then she could really handle these roller coasters. And I went on the new, for me, since I was there last, one of the newest roller coasters that is like a toughie is the Velocicoaster. And I don't know if you've been on the Velocicoaster, but it's a Jurassic Park theme roller coaster where you're kind of like running with the velociraptors, so to speak. And it launches you out of a tube just like it does in the Hulk. But there's a middle tube where you think you're going to slow down and it launches you again. So it speeds you back up. But that one just decides, hey, not like a loop to loop, just like we're going to flip the roller coaster upside down. And now you're hanging upside down for a couple seconds. They do that like 2 or 3 times and then like 3 or 4 loops. And so that one, man, I came off of that one with a headache and went, maybe my roller coaster days are over. Maybe it's the end. Maybe I can't do this anymore. But my little 10-year-old, she was like absolutely driving me to go back and back and back. So we went on the toughest rides over and over and over again until I got sick. And then I was like, I'm toast. Like if I'm I think if I went on the Velocicoaster sick, I might die. There's all the signs constantly like, please don't go on the roller coasters. You have a heart condition. If you have palpitations, you're pregnant, and everything. I was like, what if I feel like I'm going to explode from death already? Should I go on the ride now, or maybe I should? Maybe I shouldn't go on the ride. So I didn't. I backed off that last day, which is very disappointing to my 10-year-old. But it had to happen. And just for the record, if you're planning to go to Universal Studios and you buy the Costco Universal Studios package deal, which is what I bought, it's like 4 days there. Let me tell you something. 4 days is 1 day too many. There's not enough there at Universal Studios with just the 2 parks that they have. They have like a Hollywood version and the old Islands of Adventure where all the Marvel stuff is at, Jurassic Park stuff. It even with kids, you get through it all, and it's not quite enough. They're about to open up in May the Epic Universe, like 3rd park. I think there's like 5 parks at Disney. There's about to be 3 at Universal. And then I would say 4 days would be great. You do 1 day per park, and then the last day, maybe you bounce between the stuff that you liked the most and do it again. That'll probably make sense. But part of the reason we win is we get such a good deal because I guess people are like pushing off when they're going to go to Universal to the summer to when this new park opens, like in 2 months. So we got a good deal, decided to go. And it was great. It was great until I got sick. It was great. Okay, let's do a little show feedback before we jump into the main set here, which is to say we had a number of folks reach out to me to kind of go, Jimothy, where's the next episode of the show? A couple of DMs, a couple people are just tagging me, hey, where's the next episode? Because normally this is a weekly show. I like the weekly cadences. Episode 10, so this would be 10 weeks in a row, except due to illness before and after this trip, the voice was rough. You can kind of still hear it's a little rough. And I also talk for a living during the week, so I really had to protect the voice. So it's still a weekly show. That's still my intent. It's going to be bi-weekly every once in a while. Things are going to happen. But it wasn't my intent to go 4 weeks with 2 episodes. So we're back to it. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you to everybody that asked about the show and when we're coming back. I'm also trying to streamline it to get right into the content, less, upfront stuff, I guess. I don't know. But let me tell you, if you are a fan of technology and video games, especially video games this week, that's a lot of the show. Because I was sick, I had a lot of downtime where I just didn't want to go out and do anything else. And I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling low, I watch television, I play video games, and I don't move much. So there's a lot of that this week. So before we get into it, though, we have to rank a cereal. If you don't know, on the Jimothy Show, we have a cereal ranking system. It is called the list. It's called the best cereals list. And we're going to update it today. There's a new one. I hope you're ready. A note before we update the cereals list. This is scientific. This is a fresh list that is only added to when I have a fresh bowl of cereal today or whenever we do it. So I'm not going to have the bowl of cereal list that I just go, oh, yeah, you know what I remember? I remember Rice Krispies treats. Wasn't that a cool cereal where they kind of took the Rice Krispie treats but made it a cereal and it was like really awesome? That was great. Let's rank that number one. No, it's a new experiment, new hypothesis. Hypothesis says that we're going to come up with the best cereals list as of this year of our Lord 2025 and beyond. I don't know how many cereals there are. If you do one a week, you do 52 cereals. Do you think you finish all the cereals? Am I going to run out of cereals? They're still making new ones. I don't know. So feast your eyes on the current best cereals list. I've been asked before, and I'm sure I'll get asked again. Hey, why don't we just have different rankings for, uh, you know, taste and texture and price and value? And no, thank you. No, I will be bringing all of that into my body and synthesizing it into one list that is ranked as you see it in front of you. Current list as it stands today, short enough to still read. Captain Crunch Original is our number one. Lucky Charms, Fruit Loops, Golden Grams, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and Post Raisin Bran. It is very specifically Post Raisin Bran. That's the list as of today. We're going to rank today Honey Bunches of Oats with strawberries. I just finished a bowl before starting the show. Like I literally had to take the last few bites in my red bowl, large size spoon, and Costco 1% milk. I have the same bowl, the same spoon, and the same milk, though not the same, same kind of milk, not the same. Milk goes bad. Okay. You can't. It's all the same. And I do it right before the show, so it's fresh in my mind. So we're going to rank it. I have a couple of thoughts about Honey Bunches of Oats with strawberries, though. Bunch of people at work were like, oh man, Honey Bunches of Oats, that's where it's at with strawberries. So I was like, well, I got to try that out. The problem with Honey Bunches of Oats is it has kind of like this granola oat cereal-esque in it, like kind of like a big chunks of granola. And then it also has what is effectively cornflakes. And cornflakes, like the plain cornflakes, have an amazing texture to them, which is to say they get soggy real fast, but there's this golden moment on cornflakes where you can get an incredibly feels like just fresh cornflakes in your mouth. You can add stuff to it. You can add fruit to it. You can add a little bit of sugar, a little bit of honey. You can add all kinds of things to it. It's kind of like Rice Krispies, where there's not a lot to it. But if you were bold enough to just eat plain cornflakes or Rice Krispies, just insane enough to figure that out, like you can have a great experience just eating those plain. And you can have a pretty good experience eating granola cereal or cornflake cereal. But Honey Bunches of Oats puts them together. And granola and cornflakes degrade at different rates in milk. The sweet spot for when cornflakes are great in milk and when chunks of granola cereal are great in milk are two different things. And they're not the same in your bowl. So one of them is always bad. Either the granola is too crisp still and hasn't kind of soaked in with the milk enough, or the cornflakes are soggy now because you waited long enough for it's bad. So I'd much rather have like Special K with strawberries or some type of an oat based, not raisin bran, but like an oat bran cereal or clusters of oats somewhere and then add strawberries to that. But to put what could be great bran cereal, and then it's two great things that suck ass together. That's the most gross I've ever been on this show. Hope that doesn't get me booted off of Spotify. It's not great. So guess what? This is now our lowest ranked cereal, Honey Bunches of Oats. It's not good. I wish I could make it like number 10, but I haven't ranked 10 cereals yet. Like it's frustrating to eat. And the problem with it too is, as far as content creation goes, there's a bunch of different flavors of Honey Bunches of Oats, and I don't want anything to do with them. No, thank you. I'm done. I can't scientifically do it. If I'm doing science, I can't legitimately say Yeah, let's just put all Honey Bunches of Oats at the bottom because I'm not going to do that. I will be scientific. But let me just say, if there's Honey Bunches of Oats fans out there, it's going to be a while before I have another box of any type of Honey Bunches of Oats. Just disappointing all over the place. So there's our new list. I'll post it. I'll post it as soon as the show's over. I I'm sorry you all had to see that, to be honest with you. I don't know that I've ever been that frustrated by a bowl of cereal, but I do take it very seriously. That's the list. Yeah, maybe we'll do Apple Jacks. Yeah, GrowthX Minded says let's do Apple Jacks. Apple Jacks would be great. I am taking requests, and I do have a separate list uh, just for like what would you do next. I have a separate list for that. So, matter of fact, let me. You know what though? Apple Jacks is number one on the next list. Can I just tell you that GXM? It's number one. I went and looked at it just now. I was like, oh, let me make sure Apple Jacks is on there. It's number one. So buckle up if you're an Apple Jacks fan. It's coming soon. But if you have other cereals you'd like me to rank, please let me know. You've seen the list. You've all been part of science today. What other headlines are out there before we just jump straight into gaming? Because there's going to be a lot of gaming stuff today. Game Informer, the long-running 20-plus year magazine, Game Informer, uh, went out of business last year. And it was very sad because there's very few print magazines, at least in the States, for video games. There's just aren't almost, and there used to be a bunch. And so Game Informer was like this like last grasp of my childhood where I would always love going to the grocery store because I could go check out the video game. Mom was shopping, right? And they one of their last ditch things was like, hey, support the magazine because you never know if we'll go out of business. Hey, buy a special print subscription, buy 2 years for like 30 or $40. And so I did. And then the next month they went out of business. So I guess they didn't get enough people to buy that. And I think they gave me a refund, but they just had a tweet the other day that showed they're having a comeback. Something's coming. I don't know what. Something's coming. I don't know if they're coming back. I would totally resubscribe. I like look, if you're gonna relax in the bathroom, whether it's in the toilet or in the bathtub, it's nice to have a real magazine. And I have small kids. I can't be having like these adult magazines around, just something to read. And the phone is bad for you, because then you're just on Twitter, and then you're on Twitter for like 14 hours, and you get deep vein thrombosis because you're just sitting there for too long. It's bad. So, and maybe it's back around. I don't know. Maybe it is. All right. Up front is the Jimothy Gaming Minute. There's so much video game stuff going on. So if you're like not into games, I'll try and make this interesting, but I can't promise. If you're into video games, stick around. You're gonna love it. We had two huge video game releases this week. One of them I'm playing. One of them I'm not sure you could pay me to play. And let's start with that one. It's the Assassin's Creed Shadows launch. So it's all on PS5 and Xbox and PC. Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's the thing that Ubisoft has been teasing and toying with gamers about for probably a decade or more. Like, hey, the Assassin's Creed game franchise has this incredible storyline to it. Where what if you could jack in to a virtual matrix and live through the blood, through the DNA of your ancestry, and maybe far up your ancestor line, you have these incredible assassins that are fighting these Templars. And so you kind of you're like present day guy or gal, jacks into this computer and you go fight these DNA memories of the battles of your ancestors while the computer records it, probably for nefarious purposes by this corporation that I can't even remember the name of because it's been a few years since I played an Assassin's Creed game. It was really interesting because they could just make stuff up and they go, you know what, we're doing Italy now. We're doing Italy. You're going to be an Italian assassin. Hey, we're doing, you're going to be an assassin in the American Revolution. You want to check out the American Revolution? Turns out your assassin character hung out with George Washington. So they had this historical tourism where they take you, the player, around to all of these incredible places, these important moments in history. And they have this overlay. The fiction of it is this assassins versus Templars, like secret society. And you're sneaking around, like killing these Templars while helping nudge history along. Egypt. They did a big one in Egypt. Did a big one in the early industrialization of Britain. They just had some really nice ones, and people have been going, man, wouldn't it be cool if they did Japan? If they did an Assassin's Creed game in a samurai culture, in samurai times, everybody loved. I think I actually don't know if everybody loved The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. It might just be that I love the Hans Zimmer soundtrack, but I think that was a well received movie. But it's like, yeah, what if we were around, like maybe at the turn, and maybe there was maybe it's like the Last Samurai movie where it's like, oh, samurai are kind of going away and industrialization's kicking up, which was huge for Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2. Those games were set right where the West, the Wild West, was starting to end, and modernization, industrialization was taking over, and it was a really interesting game setting time there. So everybody's thinking maybe that's what it would be like, but it is a controversial game release right now because some of the biggest studios on the planet that are making video games for long running franchises are kind of making bad ones. They're making the big budget, but bad. Now, I don't know if Assassin's Creed Shadows is bad. I haven't played it. The reviews are supposedly good, but people are figuring out that the reviews aren't necessarily like accurate. Like maybe there's either some shadow money or social agendas going on, because recently Dragon Age The Veilguard came out. Dragon Age, I played a bunch of those. Played 3 of them. Incredible RPGs, but the last one that came out was bad. By all accounts, with sales and people, abandoning the game and not wanting to play it, and them having to fire and shutter the studios that made it in EA. But the reviews for Veilguard were incredibly positive. Like off the charts, upbeat, return to form, absolutely amazing, whatever. But it turns out when you get into the game, it's kind of bad. And they had was effectively, a bunch of like, HR, DEI training built into it. So famously in Dragon Age the Veilguard, they had a trans character kind of like sitting your character down for talks about what their life is like as a trans, I don't know what kind of character they're called, some, whatever it is. They're one of the characters with horns. And they're like, hey, I'm non-binary, and here's how I think about life, and I'm, here's where I'm confused, and here's where I'm certain, and here's how I'd like to be treated and discussed. And it's like, okay, I think that people should have compassion for folks and of their journeys through life, which may not all be the same. Not anti-trans, I it's fine, but it is a little weird for a video game. And I watched it, didn't play it, even though it's free on PlayStation Plus just a few months later, because to a lot of folks it felt very preachy. Like, hey, sit down and take your HR training during this video game about fantasy. And there's this like, I'm not up on all of the Gamergate stuff, but I will say that the clips I saw, I was like, I kind of don't like that. Feels weird. Like, why am I getting a lecture in the middle of this game? And apparently, they've added some of that stuff into Assassin's Creed. So they go, well, hey, we have these huge games, huge studios, unlimited budget, seemingly. I know it's not unlimited. And what can we do to make it the best game possible? And then they put in things that like don't seem like it's serving the gamer characters that would want to, the folks that would want to buy the game. And there's some of that stuff in Assassin's Creed too. So, they did not make a Jin Sakai character like they have in the Ghosts of Tsushima. soon to be the Ghost of Yotai. It was a Sony PlayStation franchise by Sucker Punch, where it was like, hey, you have a Japanese character kind of having an authentic Japanese game. They said, oh, let's change it. Let's put in this totally different character who's not from Japan, happens to be black, happens to be gay apparently, and happens to have a sexual relationship with a trans character in the game. And that's like the main character. It's on the cover. And then they do give you a samurai, like female Japanese samurai person to play with. It's like a 2-character game, I guess. And so there's just some backlash about it, and I don't know how it's going to go. But I'll tell you that the last Assassin's Creed game, Valhalla, where you could pick a male or female character, was so big and bloated. I never finished it. Like I must have put in dozens and dozens of hours, and I never felt like I was ever going to find it into it, and I just kind of lost it. So there's so many open world games right now that like seem unstructured and bloated that I'm like, well, maybe when they give me Assassin's Creed Shadows, I'll play it. So I've not played it. So what do you think? Is it going to be another Veilguard? Is it going to crash out? You know, people are looking at the Steam stats on it right now. They're like, oh, is this like, how is it doing in comparison to Dragon Age: The Veilguard? And is it like, are there less players? Are there less sales? How's it going? People want to know. So that's interesting. I'm kind of following that this week. I kind of want to see how it's going to go, but I'm not gonna buy it. What I did buy though, and went on a bit of a journey with, is Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. I've never played a Xenoblade Chronicles game before, but this one looks so good, and I've been following Gene Park on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, and this guy is so into this game that it became like infectious. It's like, oh my gosh, like I am freaking out at like how much he's showing about this game. So I don't know a ton about the game. I don't know a ton about Xenoblade Chronicles, except to say that it looks pretty good on Switch. It runs really well, and it is also like this big open world game. But it seems to be like for Switch. You think about Switch as like not like the most powerful system, um, but it's got these mechs in there, and it's like, okay, well, how open world can the mechs be? They're gonna let them fly around on the Switch? And the answer is like they super fly around on the Switch. So you explore the game with your party, and the combat is kind of like it's like an MMO where your character, when you initiate combat, or if combat initiates to you, your character is just kind of like auto attack a little bit, and they will especially get uh, more upgrades and stuff like that as you level them up. But like they have these arts, so they standard attack automatically, but they'll use arts, which are like their special attacks, and you select them as you go, and those have a cooldown. So it's very much like an MMO. It's very much like World of Warcraft or others like it, where you take you, but it's your party. You take them around, and they're firing off their arts while you're firing off yours. So when you make those selections, sometimes there's synergies. So if one of your characters pops out an art or an attack that is you know beneficial or useful to yours, it'll highlight in a certain way, and then you can end up with these like super big combo attacks as a result. So the combat's really interesting on foot, and then I guess later in the game, I don't have one of these yet. You unlock these. Basically, it's like a flying transformer. It's like you're a big mech robot, um, and you can run around, transform into vehicles, transform into a flying version of the mech, and fight bigger and bigger and bigger monsters. So you have to go, I guess, a long way through the game. I don't know exactly how long you have to do it, but you have to go some of the way through the game to be able to get through and unlock these skells. But if you're not looking at, if you go look at it online, like this game looks shockingly good for the Wii, which is like, is it like 10 years old? It's like 7 or 8 years old, I think. Um, so it is an incredibly like well performing game. It's a remaster, I guess, of an old Wii U game. So it looked good on Wii U, and they've made it look great here. And it's like, okay, I can't be bothered thinking about Assassin's Creed Shadows when this crazy new game uh, with these huge mechs and guns and sword blades uh, is coming out. Like, sorry, I don't know who else is choosing choosing to look at what might be a Dragon Age the Veilguard type of experience, and instead wouldn't go play Xenoblade Chronicles X. So it's pretty cool. I'm only a couple hours into it, definitely playing it, but I did end up going. I went through this weird journey with it where I was like, oh, I should buy that game. But then the Switch will advertise to you. They go, oh, why don't you use a game voucher to buy the game for less? It's like, okay, how do I buy a game voucher so I can buy that game for less? They said, well, you have to be a Nintendo Online member. It's like, well, I don't really care. I don't care about Nintendo Online. Like, I don't have a bunch of friends on the Switch or anything. Doesn't matter to me. This isn't really a multiplayer game. Uh, but I think that what it is that they've got some type of multiplayer built into it. And I was like, okay, maybe when I get there, when I get far enough in, maybe I'll want to play it. So I'll look at it. How much does Nintendo Online cost? It costs about as much as you'd save by buying the vouchers. But then you get access to this app called Nintendo Music, which I've made fun of online because I'm like, why do I need a separate app just for music? Just put the music out, like just put the music out somewhere. Like, what are we doing? Uh, but I'm here to tell you that I was wrong. I was wrong. The Nintendo Music app, which I make sure to share this and not play the audio. The Nintendo Music app, it turns out, is all because it has, I would say, all the music, including the little sub themes from a ton of Nintendo games. So, like, if you're into Animal Crossing, it's got like 51 tracks from Animal Crossing, and some of the Animal Crossing tracks are bops, man. Some of them are really good. They just released the music from Tetris on the Game Boy and Tetris on the NES, and those tracks are incredible. Like, incredible chip tune music. Now, can you find it somewhere else? Yeah, I guess. But to have it right there, like in super high quality, and they have this great feature where it's like, oh, this for stage A of Tetris might only be 2 minutes long, but you can extend it to 15 or 30 or 60 minutes. So because those game tracks are made to loop. So if you listen to them without the looping, it'll just fade out. But if you hit the loop, it'll go for however long you want it to go for and then fade out. So if you're like, oh yeah, I'm working on something, I'm doing the dishes, I'm filling out a report at work, and it's just mind numbing. Then you can have that be like music that you would play alongside of you, uh, which is pretty fun, and you can loop it in a certain way. So for me, the biggest one is the fact that they actually have all of the menu music for the Wii. So the Mi Plaza, the Wii weather channels, all of that's in there, and they have some of the like coolest music. It's super cool music if you're into video games, video game music of the past. Um, and it comes, so all that just comes like as soon as you subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, you get access to this app, and they keep adding stuff to it. Like, they're drip feeding new songs and new content like every week. So I laughed about it. I said this was dumb and that they shouldn't do this and that they should just put the music somewhere else. I'm here to tell you I was wrong. If you are a fan of Nintendo and video game music, it is really freaking cool. And like, as an additional option, something else that you get, it's kind of super worth downloading as part of your membership experience. So had to share it. Sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes apps like that are super cool. Okay, we're into quick hit stuff. I'm just like, this isn't a blog, it's a podcast. But like, again, if you're following me on X or on formerly known as Twitter or TikTok, I'm posting about this stuff. So it's stuff you might want to hear about. This is quick hit. Because I just haven't been able to like sink into a game. Xenoblade Chronicles is probably the one I'm going to spend some time on it today, as soon as we're done with the show. But I've been sampling. They had such good sales on PlayStation recently, and I've just had games that have stacked up that I haven't been able to finish. And so I have this huge sampling of games. And one of them has not been Fortnite. GXM says, "What about Fortnite? Have you ever gotten into that?" A word about Fortnite. I like Fortnite. Fortnite is a game that you can just pick up, put a couple of rounds in, or you can obsess into and play it all exclusively to all else. There is something cool about Fortnite. If you haven't played it, it's like 1 versus 100. You drop into this island. I don't know if you can play games and not have heard about Fortnite, so I won't explain it too much. But you drop into this island and you find stuff, different weapons, different power ups. And there's this circle that closes that if you're out of the circle, you'll die. If you're in the circle, you're okay. But as it keeps closing, it forces fights because everybody has to get closer and closer together until there's only one standing. So Fortnite's cool, and it creates moments that are incredibly intense. I don't like the Fortnite mode where you build. So when they release the Fortnite mode where you don't have to build, I think they call it no build mode. Um, I'll play that. Like I'll get into that. The kids these days that can like build a fort way over your head as soon as they see your shadow. Too much. I'm too old. I guess I'm too old. But when it's like, oh yeah, third person shooter, pick up the guns, hide, sneak, outwit somebody. I like that. So I've definitely won a couple of victory royales over time. I think they put you into queues now, where it makes it easier to win if you haven't played in a while. Seems like every time I go to turn it on, I'll turn it on every few months. I'll update it, turn it on. Um, Foolishly buy a battle pass that expires because I'll play it for like 2 days and then never play it for a few months. The battle pass will expire. Don't like that. They'd get more money out of me if they would make their battle passes unable to expire. Some of these games are doing that where you can spend $10, you have to earn all the things in the battle pass by playing the game. But when the battle pass expires, it gives you that FOMO, and you can only play that to the exclusion of all else. So it's, what if Xenoblade Chronicles came out? I don't want to have to finish my battle pass and feel bad about it while I go play Xenoblade. So I wish they would, but they won't. They haven't for years allowed you to buy a battle pass and finish it on your own journey and on your own time. They don't do that. It really sucks. I would play more Fortnite. If there's any Fortnite developers out there, you'd get $10 from me probably every month because there's always something in the battle pass that I want, and I would like to play a couple of games, but I don't want to obsess about it. I don't want to only play that. Um, as evidenced by what I actually did recently, which was just a total buffet of games. I'm just going to name games. I'm not even going to comment on all of them. Here's all the games I've played in the last 2 weeks, but just a bit, like a quest's worth. I've logged on for half an hour to an hour on all these. RoboCop, Kingdom Come Deliverance, the first one. Lords of the Fallen, which is like Elden Ring, but not as good. But it is more forgiving. I said I wasn't going to comment, but I can't. I can't shut up. You know me. I've been talking for 45 minutes straight. You already know I can't shut up. Final Fantasy 16. That is a video game. Like that's like it feels like a video game. Like it feels kind of like Game of Thrones, but like when you accept quests and finish them, like it's got this very video game splash screen that pops. Quest complete. Here's all your winnings and earnings and XP, and here's all the stuff you earned. Like it is a video game as video game, but it's a lot of fun. Hogwarts Legacy. The cool thing about coming home from Universal Studios, where you spend hours and hours in Harry Potter worlds, is that as soon as you log back into Hogwarts Legacy, you realize, oh man, I was so restricted in the actual Hogwarts land, Hogwarts and Diagon Alley, because you can't go everywhere. You can only go, right where they lead you, and everything else is an illusion or it's roped off, or they do these tricks to make it look like Hogsmeade, extends into the countryside, but we know it, it's just around the other corner is like I-49 or whatever. But Hogwarts Legacy, as soon as I logged back into that after coming home, I'm still feeling terrible, still feeling sick. But I logged in. I was like, oh, I can just go to the library and go to the restricted section. I can go to Hogsmeade. I can search all around Hogsmeade, these huge open areas. There's quests and dungeons and puzzles. And I got to tell you, Hogwarts Legacy, I'm probably only like 12 hours in. That's a great game. It's a great game. I've been playing It Takes Two with my youngest. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I booted that one back up on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Looks real good. And Death Stranding. Death Stranding, that's a weird game, and I got a timer because they just launched the trailer last week for Death Stranding 2, which comes out this summer. And that is a heck of a video game by Hideo Kojima. And if you're into Hideo and Metal Gear Solid, those games, Death Stranding is very different at first, at least. It feels like this walking simulator, this huge open area. But man, there's something special about Death Stranding. And I think you'd be missing out if you don't give it a shot. If you're into his games, I would try it. Also, probably about a dozen hours in. So I just kind of sampled all of those. Little mission here and there. And it was a lot of fun, but you're never going to beat a game that way. I'll tell you that. It certainly won't beat a game the size of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Here's a couple games I'd like to get back to if I had some more time. Arcade Paradise just came out on PlayStation Plus. Arcade Paradise is interesting. Arcade Paradise is a game where you work at a laundromat that like and it's like you move your laundry, like people show up, they drop off the laundry, and you are there to do their laundry for them. So you throw the basket of laundry into the big rack of laundry machines and you move it from the laundry machine to the dryer and you pick up the gum and the trash and you make sure the store is clean. You clean the toilet. And then you get a little bit of money. Your dad lets you keep a little bit of the money from doing the laundry for the folks that bring it to the laundromat. But you find out that you can buy arcade machines. So it's like in the 80s. You can buy arcade machines with the money that you've earned and stick them somewhere in the laundromat to make a little extra money. And so all of a sudden, you're doing laundry to buy arcade games. And then when you play the arcade games, you like level up the arcade games. I guess like 30 or 40 small games for these arcade cabinets that are all virtual, all in the game. And when you level them up, you might increase their popularity or open up options for them. So every one of the arcade cabinets that you buy has its own like leveling journey. And when you open up options, like you can change the pricing on them. So if you make a game real popular because you set a super high score, maybe that encourages other customers to come beat that score. And then maybe you bump up the pricing from a quarter to 50 cents to play it. And so pretty soon you're like managing this fleet of arcade machines, not the laundry, but the laundry's still there as a moneymaker for a while. Just a crazy game, man. That just came out on PlayStation Plus. I played it for a while on Xbox when it was free there, but I'm excited to get back to it. And the other one I would get back to is Horizon Forbidden West. Well, they finally went on sale. I repurchased that game after having not had it for a while. And that's an amazing, beautiful video game. Just a stunning game if you haven't seen it before, especially Plus. Okay, I believe it or not, I'm done talking about video games. Let's talk for a minute about movies and shows. And before I talk about movies and shows, I would like for you to repeat the mantra. Anytime you ever hear spoilers, the mantra is, I can't wait to see how that happens. I can't wait to see how that happens. It will set you free from worrying about spoilers so you can listen to me, Jimothy, talk to you. And if I spoil something, you just go, I can't wait to see how that happens. I'm not going to try and ruin anybody's experience, but you can set yourself free from having a ruined experience by saying, I can't wait to see how that happens, because that train deals with spoilers. You don't deal with spoilers anymore as something that you can't listen to. Oh my gosh, I got to run out the room like I used to do. Now you hear them and go, man, I can't wait to see how that happens. And you are set free, and you can listen to things that people talk about in the moment, have conversations with your friends about shows you haven't finished. It's fine. First up, the movie Transformers 1. Transformers 1 is like an animated, like computer animated, like origin story of the original Transformers. And we were, going to Universal Studios where they have Transformers ride. And let me tell you, when your kids are under 10 years old, 10 and under, you don't want to show them the Michael Bay Transformers movies. It's a little much. The language, the sexual innuendos, all the violence, it's all a little much. But Transformers 1 was actually a really great intro. It just came out last year and it was on Peacock? Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus. Really great way to dive into the series. Really funny. Had Keegan Michael Key as what I assume the character that isn't named Bumblebee but might become Bumblebee someday. He's kind of shaped like Bumblebee. He's hilarious. Keegan Michael Key, always funny, but he was really great in Transformers 1. And just an actually good movie. Like, I enjoyed it as an adult. The kids loved it. And then when we went to go see the Transformers ride, they knew kind of what was up. They kind of like, that's Optimus Prime. That's, it was really great. So Transformers 1, Paramount Plus, if you're into Transformers at all, whether you have kids or not, I actually think it was pretty good. It's better if you have kids, maybe a little bit, because some of the humor is a little bit kind of aimed at them, but it's pretty good. And then the next thing to talk about, just for a minute, is the Severance season 2 finale. I'm not gonna ruin the finale. I'm not gonna tell you the end of the show. And even if I did, you just can't wait to see how that happens. But Severance season 2 was wild in that in Severance season 1, it was really about the work. Like, why are they doing macro data refinement, these severed folks? And what is it? And how much are they going to do about it? And it was really focused around the office and trying to get these people productive and meet quota. Well, Severance season 2, you really find out what they're refining. What is being refined when they click the numbers on the computer and they feel scary sometimes. What's going on? So they really explain all of that, but they spend a lot of time kind of not doing the work. So every episode is like very different. Famously, they have the Ort bow where they take the severed innies that are on the severed floor of the Lumen building and they bring them outside for like a camping adventure out in the cold wilderness mountains of like the Keir National Forest or whatever. And they actually had like a character builder episode for Miss Cobell where, every other episode was just focused on the innies or the outies, but this one was just on Cobell and it was nowhere near any other character that you knew. And when TV used to be 24 episodes a season, you'd have a wonderful little character episodes. And I always think about Lost, that great show that was on ABC, where they would have 22 episodes, and sometimes you'd be begging them, please get back to the plot. What's the numbers? Who are the others? What's the underground? Let's solve the mystery of the smoke monster. But they would go, you know what we're doing for a couple episodes? Flashbacks. Just have flashbacks of the characters that you like. How about some one-offs? How about these two other characters you've never seen? They just go on and their relationship gets strained and then reforged, and now you like and know those characters better. And so they would do all these one-off interstitial character development episodes, and they just haven't had time in Severance where there's only 10 episodes, not 24, 26, 10 episodes, and they're revealing things all the time. So for them to have like, and I think it was episode 7 where it's like Cobell is kind of off on our own and you're learning about her, it was like, what is going on? Where's all my reveals? Where's my innies and outies? They also did a flashback episode this season with Gemma, Mark Scout's wife, the main character, and his wife, to learn about them, and that was great. So we had like a flashback episode that never had in season 1, and we had like a character builder episode where you just go off and follow one character for a while. And it was weird. Like, it was like a weird, so it was very different. Like, they're not doing macro data refinement very much. They're not in the office. They're not learning about the other departments too much. So it felt like a very like, man, the season is like breakneck, constantly changing. And then you had these flashback episodes and the character builder episodes. But they paid off everything and more in that season finale this week. It was like over an hour long. And it was just thing that you wish you could have seen for 2 seasons straight after thing you wish you could have seen for 2 seasons straight, just over and over and over. Mark Scout, the Audi, played by Adam Scott, and Mark S., the Innie, also played by Adam Scott, were able to talk to each other using a camcorder and walking in and out of this severance zone that they were in. So they could walk out and they'd watch the video that the other person just recorded, record a response, walk back in. And so they were able to have these conversations about like, hey, I need you to help me, Innie Marquez. And Innie Marquez goes, if I help you, it will be because we're destroying Lumen and I'll never be able to go to the severed floor again. And that's the only place I'm alive. The Innies only live, they only come awake, they only come alive when they hit that little severance barrier. And there was this moment where Mark Scout, the Audi, tells Mark S, the Innie, who's like, oh, I'm so glad you had a romantic relationship with somebody on the severed floor, like past tense. Glad you got to have that. I'm glad that happened to you. And Mark S, the Innie, is like, happened? It's not over. Like, my life's not over yet as an Innie. And you could see the defiance between the Audi and the Innie happening in Mark for the first time. And that leads to an ending, which is predictable at that point, but an amazing, amazing show. If you haven't seen it, you've got to watch it. Severance. Not with the kids around. It's pretty tough. Uh, Second to lastly, I've been reading The Way of Kings, more of The Way of Kings, which is by Brandon Sanderson. I'm about 250 pages in, and I almost know what's going on in this book. It's like a 1,200 page book. Someone asked me, they're like, what's going on in the book? I have no freaking idea. I'm following like two main characters, I think. How are they going to connect together? What's the point of the book? I don't know. But they finally at least unveiled and showed the power of the shard plate and the shard blade. And they had a big fight where they were going on a hunt with the king and his protectors and the protector's sons, and they're all wearing shard plates, which is the magical, I guess, magical armor that they have, and these shard blades, which they can like summon out of thin air, that are like 3 times as tall as they are. And so they had an incredible scene in the book where they're actually finally using the shard plate and shard blade. People have been referencing, for 200 pages now, to take down this huge animal they were trying to go hunt. So it's definitely a little bit of Game of Thronesian. You're following these couple of characters around, not dozens of characters, but 2 or 3 or 4 characters around, and they're kind of learning their place in the world of the Way of Kings, um, figuring out the changes that happened since a king got assassinated, or trying to figure out how to come out of slavery. One of the main characters is like, used to be a soldier, but it's effectively a slave. So it's pretty interesting. I'm going to keep reading it. That's my update on The Way of Kings. And just one quick thought, deep thoughts with Jimothy this week. Um, Maybe you're at work. Maybe you've heard about this. Maybe you think about it for yourself. Maybe you're listening to influencers where you'll hear like, oh, you should always be improving. Continuous improvement. Never stay the same. I think continuous improvement is a bit of a scam. I think that if you're thinking about your job or any area of your life that you care about a lot, continuously improving is the wrong way to think about it. So if you think about continuous improvement, you might think about like a bar or a line chart that's always going up and to the right. Continuously improving up and to the right. Um, I think instead it should be a little bit more like a stair step. So you should look around your job or your area of responsibility and evaluate on some type of cadence. Maybe it's once a quarter, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's once a week, but it's not every day. It's not every hour. It's not continuous. It's on some type of a cadence. I'd say maybe monthly. Regularly evaluate whether what you're doing should keep going the way it's going or whether it should drastically change. Then act accordingly until the next cycle. You need some time to let things bake in. I was reflecting on it today. Like, this is episode 10 of the Jimothy show. And I reflected, 10 episodes ago and said, I would love to do a podcast, live on X. Now I'm streaming on multiple platforms. The podcast goes up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow me there. Please rate the show. Please download. Please like. But I went from 0 to 1, right? I went from no podcast to podcast. And I frequently, every episode was like, let's change this. I changed the way I'm streaming it, changed the way I'm structuring the show, changed the microphone. Let's upgrade the sound quality. Let's make it, a live broadcast instead of a recording. So I was constantly changing it really, really fast. So that was like a state of change. Well, 10 episodes in, like I kind of can't keep changing it all that fast, or you, the listener, is going to be like, man, this show's too freaking different every week. I have no idea how to like why I would want to spend my time there. So actually I need to stabilize it a fair bit, right? And there's areas of your life this applies to too. Make a change, stabilize that change, and then see if you should change it again. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe small tweaks, maybe you could do little tiny things all the time. But if I was like, hey man, I did 10 episodes of this show and now I'm gonna live stream it from a boat. It's like that would be cool, like as a one-off. But like maybe I'm used to listening to the podcast every week. So you want to be providing value in your life to other people or at work to your company, or if you run the company to your employees and customers. Don't change everything so fast. Continuous improvement is a scam. It should be stair stepped improvement where you take an evaluation on cadence, or when something happens, I guess you should take a look. If you have a big win or a big failure, maybe you should think about that. But if you change it all the time, you never get a chance to learn anything about the changes that you made. So don't change everything all the time. Continuous improvement, bit of a scam. That's Deep Thoughts with Jimothy today. And thanks for listening. I mean, just really so happy to be back. So happy to be on this podcast and broadcast with all of you. 30 plus of you have been hanging out here listening with me across uh, Twitch, YouTube, and X. We did a lot today about video games. Hope that's okay. If you're like, man, Jimothy, can you talk a little bit more about like world news headlines? Like, why aren't we talking about Tesla dealerships getting firebombed? Like, why aren't we talking about that? Let me know. I open up a thread, or you can DM me. My DMs are open on X. Every week going like, give me show feedback, things you wanted to know, things you want me to talk about, because I want it to be valuable to you as well as interesting to me. So today it was heavy video games. We talked a lot. Game Informer maybe's coming back. Assassin's Creed Shadows came out. Xenoblade Chronicles and the Nintendo Music Experience. We talked about those. The big buffet of games that I've been like sick and going through. Talked a little bit about Arcade Paradise. Start with the laundromat, end up with an arcade house. Not bad. Transformers 1, Severance Season 2, and The Way of Kings, and a little deep thought here and there. So thanks for listening. I'm so glad that you've been here with me. I hope you have a heck of a wonderful rest of your weekend. Follow me on Spotify and X. See you next time. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye.